It was a calm, red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York. Most passengers were dozing off, the cabin lights dimmed, and the soft hum of the engines created a lullaby of white noise. In seat 8A, a young woman named Emma was fast asleep against the window, her head resting on a travel pillow. The flight was halfway over, gliding smoothly through the night sky, when suddenly the intercom crackled. The captain's voice came on, but it wasn't the usual routine announcement about turbulence or altitude. His tone was urgent, carrying a weight that made every passenger straighten in their seat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said firmly, "if there is a medical professional on board, please press your call button immediately. We have an emergency." The calm of the cabin shattered instantly. Passengers stirred awake, some gasping, others whispering. Mothers held their children closer, and businessmen exchanged nervous glances. Flight attendants rushed up and down the aisles, their faces tight with concern. The tension was palpable. In the quiet darkness of the cabin, fear began to spread like wildfire. Nobody knew that the answer to this desperate call was just a few feet away, right there in seat 8A. Emma stirred in her sleep, the overhead lights flickering on around her. She blinked, confused by the commotion. Beside her, a middle-aged man leaned over and whispered, "Something's wrong. They need a doctor." Her heart jolted. She rubbed her eyes and sat up straighter. The flight attendant was scanning the rows, urgency in her voice. "Please, if anyone is medically trained, now is the time." Emma reached into her bag and pulled out her hospital ID. She stood up, her voice steady but quiet. "I'm a doctor." The relief on the flight attendant's face was instant. "Please, come with me. It's serious." Emma followed quickly down the aisle, her mind already shifting into emergency mode. She was a trauma surgeon from a New York hospital, used to high-stakes situations, but this was different. She wasn't in a fully equipped ER. She was at 35,000 feet, with only what the crew had in their medical kit. In row 14, an elderly man had collapsed. His wife was holding his hand, her face pale with terror. "Please," she whispered, "help him. He just stopped breathing right." Emma knelt beside him, her hands moving with practiced precision. She checked his airway, his pulse and his breathing. The man's face was clammy, his chest rising unevenly. "Get me the emergency kit and oxygen," Emma instructed firmly. The attendant scrambled, returning within seconds. She placed the oxygen mask over the man's face and began assessing his vitals. Passengers nearby sat in stunned silence, watching every move. Some prayed quietly, others looked on with wide eyes, unsure of what was happening. The entire cabin seemed to hold its breath. Minutes ticked by, but to everyone watching it felt like hours. Emma worked calmly, directing the crew with confidence. "I need aspirin if you have it, and keep his legs elevated." Her voice carried authority, but also reassurance. Even the terrified wife seemed to find hope in the steadiness of her tone. The man's breathing began to stabilize, though his pulse was still weak. Emma leaned closer, speaking gently to him. "Stay with me, sir. You're not alone. We're going to get you through this." The captain called down from the cockpit, his voice again on the intercom. "Doctor, do you recommend we divert the flight?" Emma looked at the man, then at the equipment available. Diverting would take at least an hour, and that delay could be fatal, or unnecessary, if she could stabilize him now. She thought quickly and answered firmly, "Stay on course. He's stable enough for now, but I'll monitor him the rest of the flight." The cabin remained silent, every passenger hanging on her words. For the next 3 hours, Emma stayed by the man's side, refusing to return to her seat. She checked his vitals every few minutes, adjusting the oxygen, keeping him calm, and speaking softly to his wife. The attendants brought her water, but she barely touched it. Her focus never wavered. Passengers who had been strangers just hours ago now looked at her with awe. They whispered among themselves, pointing quietly towards seat 8A. "That's her," one man said. "She was asleep and now she's saving his life." The story of the woman in 8A spread through the cabin like wildfire. As the plane finally descended into New York, the captain's voice returned once more. but this time it was filled with relief. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to announce that our passenger is stable, thanks to the incredible efforts of Dr. Emma in seat 8A. Please join me in giving her our gratitude." The cabin erupted in applause. People clapped, cheered, and even stood to give her a round of respect. Emma blushed faintly, her tired eyes betraying just how exhausted she truly was. She hadn't planned on being a hero that night, she just wanted to get home and rest. But fate had other plans. When the plane landed, paramedics were already waiting. They carefully transported the elderly man off the aircraft, alive and breathing steadily. His wife turned to Emma, tears streaming down her face. She clutched her hands and whispered, "You gave me my husband back." "Thank you." Emma simply nodded, her voice humble. "Just doing my job, ma'am." But to everyone else on that flight, she wasn't just doing her job. She was proof that even in the most unexpected moments, heroes walk among us, sometimes sitting quietly in seat 8A until the world needs them most. The red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York had been uneventful for hours. The cabin was dark, the passengers wrapped in blankets, the steady hum of the engines lulling most into light sleep. Flight attendants moved quietly up and down the aisles, checking seatbelts and offering water to the few who were awake. In seat 8A, near the window, a young woman named Emma was fast asleep. She had pulled her hoodie tight and leaned against the side panel, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Halfway into the flight, the calm was broken. The intercom crackled, and the captain's voice came on, not with the usual calm tone about turbulence or altitude, but with urgency that made everyone sit up straighter. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice steady but tense, "if there is a medical professional on board, please press your call button immediately. We have a passenger in distress." Gasps spread through the cabin. Passengers exchanged nervous looks. Someone whispered, "What's happening?" Another murmured, "Do they have a doctor?" Flight attendants rushed forward with the medical kit, their expressions tight with worry. The sense of unease grew heavier with each passing second. Emma's eyes fluttered open, confused by the sudden commotion. She sat up, scanning the worried faces around her. The flight attendant leaned close and asked urgently, "Miss, are you a doctor?" Still groggy, Emma blinked before nodding. She reached into her bag and pulled out her hospital ID. "Yes, trauma surgeon," she said, her voice firm despite the fatigue in her eyes. She had just finished back-to-back shifts at a Los Angeles hospital and was finally heading home to New York for some much-needed rest, but rest would have to wait. Within minutes, Emma was kneeling in the aisle beside an elderly passenger who had collapsed. His wife was clutching his hand, her face pale, her voice trembling. "Please, help him. He just stopped breathing properly." Emma's exhaustion vanished. Instinct and training took over. She gently moved the man into position, checking his airway and pulse. His breathing was shallow, his skin clammy. It was clear he was in serious trouble. "Get me oxygen now," Emma instructed firmly. Flight attendants scrambled to retrieve the portable tank. She checked his vitals quickly and asked for aspirin from the emergency kit. Her tone was calm, precise, commanding, but not cold. Even the man's terrified wife found herself reassured by the steadiness in Emma's voice. The passengers around them sat frozen in silence, their eyes wide. Some clasped their hands together, whispering quiet prayers. Others leaned forward, straining to catch a glimpse of the young woman in 8A who had suddenly become the center of the cabin. Emma fitted the oxygen mask onto the man and monitored his response. She guided the attendants step by step. Elevate his legs, keep his head steady, monitor his breathing. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, her voice calm even under pressure. Minutes ticked by. To the passengers it felt like hours. Finally, after a tense struggle, Emma felt the man's pulse grow stronger. His breathing steadied under the oxygen flow. The color began to return to his face. Emma exhaled deeply, relief washing over her. She had stabilized him for now. The captain's voice came over the intercom again, this time carrying a different tone, relief mixed with gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to inform you that thanks to Dr. Emma in seat 8A, our passenger is now stable. Please join me in giving her our deepest thanks. For a moment there was silence. Then the cabin erupted into applause. Passengers clapped, some even stood. A wave of admiration swept through the plane. People whispered, "She saved him. She saved his life." Emma sat back against the seat, finally letting herself breathe. Her eyes were tired, her body aching, but a faint smile crossed her lips. She had boarded this plane as just another exhausted traveler. But tonight, she was the hero at 35,000 feet. The man's wife leaned forward, her hands trembling as she clasped Emma's. Tears streamed down her face. You gave me my husband back. I don't know how to thank you." Emma squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to. Just take care of him. That's thanks enough." For the rest of the flight, Emma refused to return to her seat. She stayed by the man's side, checking his vitals every few minutes, adjusting the oxygen, and ensuring he remained stable. The crew quietly brought her water and a blanket, but she barely touched either. Her focus was on her patient. Around her, passengers continued to whisper. Some watched with admiration, others simply sat in awe. In that dimly lit cabin, they knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. As the plane began its descent into New York, the captain made one final announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing shortly. Emergency medical teams are standing by. Once again, on behalf of the crew and passengers, thank you, Dr. Emma, for being with us tonight." The applause came again, louder this time, filling the cabin as the plane touched down. When the doors opened, paramedics rushed in and carefully transferred the elderly man to a stretcher. He was awake now, weak but alive, holding his wife's hand. Before leaving, the wife turned back one last time, her voice breaking. "We'll never forget what you did for us." Emma gave a tired nod, her humility shining through. "Safe travels," was all she said. As the passengers filed out of the plane, many stopped to thank her, some shaking her hand, others simply offering a nod of respect. In the busy world of airports and rushing flights, this was a rare moment of unity. Strangers connected by gratitude toward the woman in 8A. When Emma finally stepped off the plane, she wasn't thinking about applause, recognition, or even the word hero. She was simply relieved the man would live to see another day. But for everyone on that flight, the story of Dr. Emma, the tired trauma surgeon who had just wanted to sleep, would live on as a memory of hope, courage, and humanity at 35,000 feet.